So last night I went to Chapel Hill because I said on Monday, nice response by the Tar Heels in how they ran Clemson out of the building. But I don't think I was being an ass. I don't think I was being harsh on the Tar Heels because we understand what the season was about. It wasn't about making the NCAA tournament. It wasn't about being a good team. It was about looking like a national championship contender. And I know the thought is, all right, well, they turned it on. They were kind of a bubble team last year, and then the Pitt game happened, and from that game on, the rest is history. Okay, cool. So you do it against Clemson. Do it again. Look like a team that can stack a get-right game and follow it up with a necessary good win. Not that the Clemson win wasn't a good one, but Miami might be one of the best teams in the ACC.
No, they are the best team in the ACC. And we saw this after Duke beat Carolina at Cameron as well. One of the more predictable results. Now, while I did think Miami would win last night because that's a tough turnaround situation.
It is.
I did think Carolina being at home had a better chance against Miami than Duke did down there. That's the way the game did play out. Miami's just, if they're going to shoot early in the game the way that Nigel Pack did, going to be very tough to beat.
It was weird.
Well coached.
It was
they
weird
have
seeing
good
a Pack
guards.
Do well in the building.
Norchard, O'Meara, Nigel Pack and his $800,000 payroll. Legit. That's the number. No, he was outstanding.
So the Tar Heels find themselves in a situation that if they cannot get the right conditions to play basketball, they don't know what to do. And this is where you give credit to Jim Larranaga in Miami for adjusting. We spent a good chunk of time talking to Mike Glennon, former NC State quarterback, about halftime adjustments. How much halftime adjustments can you make in a football game when you have a limited amount of time in halftime? Well, basketball is a little bit different. You can draw up a play. You can see what the other teams are doing. You can try to work around that. And that's exactly what Jim Larranaga did against the Tar Heels yesterday. There were two moments in the second half that I thought Jim Larranaga got right. The first one was completely cutting off Armando Bacot, forcing the Tar Heels to settle for shots or get impatient. He knew, all right, fine. You had some success against us driving, making the extra pass. Let's take that away. Let's get two guys on Bacot immediately. Let's just make sure that you cannot drive and force you on the outside. Basically, work through the hedges. Did not work for the Tar Heels. Jim Larranaga's bet paid off. Essentially, the Tar Heels reverted back to the mishmash of poor decision-making, not making the extra pass, rushing a shot, and then they found themselves down. And I agreed with Hubert Davis in that the three-point totals were a little skewed because at the end of the game, as they were trying to fight back into it by fouling Miami, and they got it within single digits, skewed the three-point numbers. Totally agree with you on that. The other thing that Jim Larranaga did was, as Miami was running a little too hot, they were making some really dumb passes. They were trying to speed the game up, which is not what Jim Larranaga wanted. You don't want to speed the game up against the Tar Heels.
No.
So he called a timeout. Called a crucial timeout about midway through the first half. And he calmed the team down, and they got back to running half-court sets. And that's where the defensive side of the ball for the Tar Heels was really exposed too. So all kudos in the world to Miami and how they played that game. But back to the Tar Heels and the problems. And what I said earlier, the conditions have to be right for this team to play good basketball, and teams are not going to be accommodating to you. And now the Tar Heels find themselves 8-7 in the ACC, and they have no Quad 1 wins. They're 0-9 against Quad 1 opportunities. Gary Parrish at CBS Sports pointed this out, saying that, by the way, here are the teams that have more Quad 1 wins than the Tar Heels right now. It includes Louisiana Monroe, Dartmouth, Central Michigan, and Eastern Illinois. None of those teams are going to make the NCAA tournament. We're talking about teams that are in the high 200s, low 300s in net. So that's a really bad look for the Tar Heels. And, Joe, we talked about this with Joe Lenardi, bracketologist at ESPN yesterday. It's not unheard of if you do poorly against Quad 1 opponents. You have the opportunities. That's good. But if you have that big fat 0 sitting next to your name, it's going to drop you into a group of teams that gets highly scrutinized, and they'll find reasons to keep you out of the tournament, and that's where the Tar Heels find themselves.
You also can look at, well, who did you beat that's in the field?
Yeah.
And that could potentially be an issue for UNC. College Charleston was a good win, the second game of the season. I do expect from the combination of Wake, State, and Clemson, I do expect at least 2 of them to make the tournament. So they have those 2 wins, but you have to have more to your resume than good losses.
Mm-hmm.
And the Alabama was a good loss. Iowa State was a good loss. Indiana was a good loss, but those don't count.
So let's talk about pressure. All right. Pressure and this Tar Heels team that does not look like they're enjoying playing basketball together.
I will point out that they do have 2 Q1 opportunities still in front of them, which is rare on this ACC schedule.
NC State is one of them.
They get State on the road. It's a very winnable game for them. And then they play Virginia. Now, they have struggled with Virginia. They've had problems with the Cavaliers. But still, it's one of those opportunities where you go, just think back to last year. They were kind of toast. They lose to Pitt at home.
Yeah.
And you're thinking, well, they got 2 more opportunities. They got Virginia Tech on the road. Then they go to Duke. This is not the same thing, but those are 2 difficult opportunities. The good news for Carolina is all you got to do is look at last year and say, we handled those opportunities. We've been in this situation before.
They haven't been in this situation, though.
But how do you get out of it? Last year, it was Brady Manick was able to really coalesce a group and bring it together.
Yes.
And make it work. Armando Bacot is probably the ACC Player of the Year, but he's not a guy you just throw the ball into and get a basket. Actually, the best play for them is for a miss and for Bacot, who will absolutely get the rebound and then put the miss in. That's kind of the situation.
Well, they're missing a lot of them.
It went from, okay, well, now all of a sudden we just think we can dump it into Armando and get a bucket, and he struggles a little bit against equally talented teams.
But this is what I get back to, the pressure. I understand what you're saying. They got the opportunities. They had some opportunities last year, and we know how it all played out.
Yeah.
But they didn't have pressure last year.
No, they did not. Because at that point, remember, they started the season with some notable losses to Tennessee and Kentucky, and people were really down on them. So it really was a house money situation.
This is now entering into a different realm, a different level of pressure that
completely different
that they were supposed to take on, like we've seen other Tar Heel teams. The thing that you pointed out after the loss at Wake Forest that stuck out to me was Armando Bacot talking about Hubert Davis's career at Carolina, Sean May's career at Carolina, the head coach and a staff member.
Because that's what they said in that meeting.
Yes, and Armando.
This is our standard.
And
this
Armando,
is why we're here.
Given how long he's been there, given where he stands in the records, he understands I want to be in this conversation as well. So you can embrace that, or you can let it get to you and crumble. And unfortunately for the Tar Heels, I'm not saying this specifically to Armando, who I think has had a good season, all things considered. It's the other players around him, and ultimately you're going to look at the sample size of the last 3 years and go, you know what? It's time for a hard reset with the Tar Heels. That this big 3, we kind of know what they are now at this point. They had an amazing run last year. That's never going to go away. They can always point to the fact that they ended K's career, literally ended his career. But this group, and for Hubert Davis's sake, there needs to be a clean slate. It's time to bring Hubert Davis's guys in, not the holdovers of when you were on the staff and Roy Williams's guys. You talk about this a lot. You want to see what a Hubert Davis Tar Heels team is, and we won't know that until next year, truly. Next year, and maybe even in 2 years. So I do think we're at that point now with the Tar Heels where it's time for this thing to wind down. And I don't see the pressure. I don't see them reacting to pressure very well right now. First off, there was the pressure of being the top team.
They have to play perfect is the problem. They just have no margin.
They have no margin for error. So, and they've not handled it well. There was the pressure of being the team. All right, you come back. You're supposed to hammer teams. You're supposed to go on this run for the NCAA tournament. They haven't looked that part. And now we get to the other part of the pressure. Y'all might not make the NCAA tournament. Here's Armando Bacot after the game yesterday when he's asked about, look, you're 0-9 against quad 1 opportunities. There's not many of these left. Do you feel like you might not make the NCAA tournament?
Yeah, I believe we're a tournament team, but at the end of the day, we got to show it.
What is it going to take these last 5 games to actually show that? What do you feel like?
I don't know. Just got to win. I don't know. We got to figure something out.
Hubert Davis, the head coach of the Tar Heels, was asked about the team feeling pressure of not making the NCAA tournament, which, again, is a different kind of pressure from you're the favorite to win it all.
I wouldn't say that. I would say that they're upset that we lost a game tonight. I wouldn't take it there. It's, we have a game against NC State on Sunday, and we play Notre Dame, and then we play Virginia, and then we play Florida State, and then we close out the regular season with Duke at home. And so we were excited about our effort on Saturday against a really good Clemson team, and we were excited about the challenge of playing against Miami on our home floor tonight. And at the end of the day, we just weren't good enough.
That's Hubert Davis after the game talking about pressure. Here's Joe Lunardi, who we talked to yesterday about North Carolina's NCAA tournament chances. And I asked him, when you got that 0 next to your name in quad 1 opportunities, where's that going to slot you when the NCAA tournament committee starts to figure out where to put people?
When it's a donut in that column, it's pretty hard to miss.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, every year we get to this point and there are bubble teams that haven't won a road game.
Yeah.
Like a true road game or maybe they win a neutral game or, they win some local rivalry, game like a Providence against Rhode Island kind of thing where it's semi-home or semi-neutral. But in Carolina's case, what I would say to you is, if they don't make the tournament, it won't be because they don't have quad 1 wins. It'll be because they lost too many games.
So that's Joe Lunardi when we talked to him yesterday, Joe.
Yeah,
it's
and
not
those,
looking good.
Yeah, those opportunities too. And remember, Armando Bacot early in the season kind of fighting through some injuries, really didn't play in that Indiana game, didn't play in the Virginia game. And we talked about it. Well, there's still time left. There's still time left. And that's where you get into this situation where it's getting dark early, right? Because you don't have the Iowa State or the Alabama or the Indiana banked. The games that they do have banked, Ohio State and Michigan, have not really turned out the way that they've needed them to turn out. And now you're sitting here going, well, maybe we can get the State. Maybe we can get Duke. Again, there are still opportunities there in front of him. So I don't mind what Hubert Davis is saying, but that does sound an awful lot like the loser's lament I would often hear from NC State at the end of the year. Well, we could still go to Carolina. We could still do this. We could still do that. Yes, you can. But what are the odds of you realistically doing that?